Welcome to Brownswood Nursery. This is our tree plant identification and knowledge base. We'd like to talk to you about the Leyland Cypress. So this is a very fast growing evergreen conifer. It can reach heights of anywhere between 20 and 40 foot high, 10 to even 18 foot wide, and prefers full sun, well-drained soil, and good airflow, and should not be planted too close together. This is the Loquat, the Japanese plum tree, one of the signature trees at Brownswood Nursery. It's an evergreen tree reaching heights of 15 to 30 foot and widths of probably the same, 15 to 30 foot. It does have a large leaf. These particular leaves aren't quite mature, so they're not quite that big yet, but they do get large. Similar to a magnolia, they are going to have some debris, so full disclosure, there's going to be some debris, but they produce an edible fruit, and we're starting to see some of that fruit form right here. So we can zoom in on that for you. So it does produce edible fruit called loquats, or Japanese plums, and the flowers form first, which is now, and it's December when we're taking this video, so you can kind of see the flowers, and then the fruit will form. So a great tree. It does so many great things in terms of screening, provides shade, and is relatively fast growing, but the first few years it's a little slow, and then it catches up. So this is a southern magnolia, or grandiflora, and there's lots of varieties and cultivars, but the main thing to note on the magnolias is they have those very large, beautiful, creamy white flowers that are incredibly fragrant. These trees are evergreen, usually with a dark, kind of shiny green top with a brown back, and I think you can see that kind of right in here, the green backs and the brown backs and the green tops, and they are relatively between moderate to fast growing, probably closer to the moderate side, and can take full to part sun. They can take some shade, but the more shade they get, the thinner they're going to get. Some magnolias can reach widths of 40 foot. Others are more narrow. This one happens to be one that's a little more on the narrow side, so probably 15 foot. And then the little gem magnolia gets even more narrow, about 10 foot. Here's the beautiful fragrant flower of the magnolia, one of the main reasons to have one. And you can see that beautiful kind of shiny foliage, green top, brown backs. And this particular one we're looking at is the little gem magnolia, which can still reach vertical heights of between 15 and 20 foot high, but in terms of width, only about 10 foot. So here's some more examples of those. This is the Blanchard Magnolia, which again is going to reach heights anywhere from probably 30 to 40 plus feet, and has a larger leaf than the little gem magnolia. So you can see the size of that leaf. It's quite large. Part of that is going to be an issue in terms of debris, so if you're very debris conscious, you might want to consider a different magnolia. But beautiful flowers, beautiful evergreen foliage, probably, like I said, 30 to 40 plus feet high, probably 15 to 20 foot wide. Just a really nice southern magnolia. Here's our 30-gallon version of the Loquat, the Japanese plum tree, which currently is standing about 7 to 8 foot high. Of course, crops do vary, but it's a really good looking tree, particularly for a corner of the property, or even one in front of the house off the corner. So this is the Nelly holly, which can reach heights of 15 foot high approximately, about 6 to 8 foot wide. You can see it does have a dark green, very formal looking foliage, very pointy, very sharp. It does get berries, and you can see some of the berries are forming and will turn red, and there's some more red berries on this particular one. But great evergreen shrub, full sun, can take a good bit of shade, and very, very versatile to be used throughout the landscape. But usually it's used on the corner, again, kind of a corner anchor piece, also in threes. A nice row of 3 of them makes a big impact as well. This is the Dahoon holly, D-A-H-O-O-N, Dahoon holly, and this is what we call a CT, or clear trunk. So you've got almost 4 foot between the top of the root ball to the lower parts of the first branches. So it's a really good looking tree. It is evergreen, it does berry, heights of about 15 to 20 foot high, about 10 to 12 foot wide, and can stay in a more manicured look, or can be pruned to be a little more whimsical, a little more natural. Full to part sun. It can actually take a good bit of shade as well, but it is going to get thinner. This is the same tree, the Dahoon Holly, what we call FTG, full to the ground. And so you can see the differences between where it's been pruned and where it's been grown full to the ground. This next one is the Eggleston Holly. It has a darker green leaf, so whereas the Dahoon has more of a lime green mixed with a dark green, this has a darker green leaf and more of a pointed leaf. And again, this is a CT version of the Eggleston. Very similar heights to the Dahoon Holly. So, 20, 25 high, 12 to 15 wide, and that comes in an FTG as well. And then this is a close-up of the Dahoon Holly. You can see the red berries, has great red berries. So this is the leaf structure of the Dahoon Holly, smooth, almost unholly-like. It's got a little bit of a point, but it's very soft. Versus the Eggleston leaf, which has, you can see, multiple points on here, and a darker green leaf. So it's more pointed versus the Dahoon Holly, which is going to have a softer leaf structure. This is the Natchez Crape Myrtle. It is my favorite crepe myrtle because of the dark cinnamon bark. A lot of the traditional crepe myrtles have more of a creamy colored bark, and the Natchez, which blooms white, has the dark cinnamon bark. 20-25 foot high, 20-25 foot wide, a very fast growing deciduous tree, as you can see. One of the key notes to remember is not to plant Natchez crepe myrtles near driveways or where cars might be, or where you wouldn't want anything damaged, because the flower pods, the seed pods, particularly when there's a little bit of moisture, when these things drop, they are acidic and can eat into paint. The other two varieties that we deal with a lot are the Tuscarora, which is a watermelon pink, and a Muskogee, which is a pale lavender. All three of them reach approximately the same height and width. And crepe myrtles do prefer full sun. So this is a Tuscarora, and you can see, again, the coloring of the bark is just not as showy. But obviously, if you had a Natchez in this same age, you might not see as much of a difference in the bark either. But as they mature, the Natchez really comes out dark cinnamon. This is what we call a multi-stem. So you can see there's, in this particular one, there's 4 stems. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And this is going to produce a watermelon pink bloom. And next I'll show you what a single stem crepe myrtle looks like. So this is the creme de la creme, I think, of crepe myrtles. A single stem, 1 stem, Natchez crepe myrtle. It's my favorite tree in the crepe myrtle family. And in terms of bloom time for all crepe myrtles, they're generally going to be in the summertime. So depending on weather and temperature and that sort of thing. And you might get between 6 and 8 weeks of bloom. So again, that's why I think that the Natchez is really the best choice, because maybe up to 2 months out of the year you have flowers, but the rest of the time, the other 10 months, you have trunk. And so I still think without leaves, this is a beautiful specimen. This is the bald cypress. So if you have a wet area, a damp area, or you just have a large space where you want a big tree, this is a great tree to plant. This particular one, you can see all the really, flaky, rough bark. And then you can see the foliage, how beautiful the foliage is. But it is called a bald cypress for a reason, which is generally in the wintertime, it's going to defoliate completely. If you have a lot of moisture in the ground, or depending on your moisture levels, this does produce what's called knees. So you've seen them before in bogs and kind of wetland areas where it'll grow up high and then the root will go back down. So you'd have to be cautious for that in the area that you plant them in. But the bald cypress is kind of a fun tree if you've got a large space. In terms of height, this tree can reach anywhere from 40 to 50 foot plus high and prefers full sun. So this is the live oak. Quercus virginianus, and the live oak is a staple for the Charleston area. You can tell it's got those little leaves, and it's got a great look to it, particularly as it gets older. And It's just a nice tree. In terms of height and width, you're going to see anywhere from, you know, 100 feet high by 100 foot wide, all the way down to trees that are only maybe 10 or 15 years old, might be 20 foot by 20 foot, just depending on the site conditions. But these trees live hundreds and hundreds of years. So if you've got a good spot with a good bit of space, give one a try. It is evergreen and it prefers full sun. This is the red cedar, another evergreen conifer that wants full to part sun. It could possibly take a little more on the shade side, but it's probably going to do better in part to full sun. And heights can range anywhere from 30 plus foot high to 15 foot wide, somewhere in that range. And but is a great conifer and a native conifer to the southeast. So this is the red maple, and so Acer rubrum. So not much to look at right now this time of year, which is basically winter. And but you can see the leaf structure and kind of these red colorings. So it's got a neat look to it. It is a very fast tree. You're talking 40 to 50 foot high, probably 30 to 40 wide, and it grows very quickly. It has quite a serious root system, so I'd be very cautious about where and when to plant this tree. But generally, depending on the cultivar, you can get some really great fall color. So if you want that fall color change, maybe think about a couple of the newer cultivars for that. Just check in with the Nursery and Garden Center at brownswoodnursery.com or give us a call to find out more info on that. This is the wax myrtle. This is a native, what many people consider a weed, but it is a wonderful shrub, large growing shrub, can reach heights of 12 to 20 foot high, 6 to 10 wide, and is evergreen. It has a really neat fragrance when you crush the leaves. Some people say that it keeps the mosquitoes and the bugs off of you, but it's a great shrub to line for separation. It's a great shrub just to kind of soften the house if you have some large areas on the side of the house. And it'll grow in sun or deep shade. It'll grow in dry conditions. It'll grow in wet conditions. It's a very versatile evergreen shrub. So this is a large mature Drake elm. You can see some of the remaining foliage, and you can see that beautiful kind of orangey trunk right through here. It's got kind of a burnt orange flaky trunk. It's not as significant as the river birch, but it is still very interesting to look at. Fast growing tree, 30 foot high, 30 foot wide, little intricate leaf, which comes out chartreuse green in the spring. And if you want something that provides some shade, the Drake elm I think is one of the top choices in terms of speed. Because of its speed though, it doesn't have the longevity of say an oak. So keep that in mind, and I'll show you a specimen that we have in a container. So this is our 30-gallon Drake elm. And again, you can see we got about 4 foot of clear trunk before we reach to the top or the bottom of the branch structure. And you can see kind of what the leaves look like. These have some leaves. So they're small, intricate. They have ridges on the edges. They're kind of coarse from the feel. And then this is a good example of the seed pods. They get these beautiful seed pods all over the tree. Here's what our 65-gallon Drake elm looks like. And it is a beauty. So if you want a specimen tree and you don't want to wait, this is a great one. It's probably tipping right now about 12 foot and would have a great structure for you. This is the river birch. A very, again, fast growing, aggressive tree, but it has to have a lot of water. It loves water. And it's a messy tree. You're gonna see a lot of stem breakage, branch breakage, and a lot of debris. It has beautiful flaky bark, which I'll try to get in here and show you the beautiful flakiness of the bark. But it is a mess. Very fast growing, again, 30 to 50 foot high, 30 wide probably, and full sun. And of course it is deciduous. This is the olive tree. This is a European olive tree in a standard form, so it's kind of a tree form, almost in a topiary, but really beautiful. And it does produce edible olives. It wants full sun. It is evergreen, and in terms of height, olives can live thousands of years, so they can get very large. but I would think you'd probably keep it or see it usually in the 20-foot range, but you could also keep it as kind of a boutique tree and something a little bit shorter and more manicured. This is the weeping Yaupon holly, and you can see one of its signature features are these beautiful red berries. So it's got some great berries, a little intricate leaf, beautiful green leaf, and this one's a weeping. There's also an upright version, which looks sort of like this one. This is not technically an upright Yaupon, but it looks sort of like that. And this is the weeping. And then we have the dwarf Yaupon holly, which is a shrub, a low little green meatball shrub. This is evergreen, reaches heights of maybe 12 foot high, 4 to 5 foot wide, so relatively narrow. Will take full to part sun and probably handle a decent amount of shade as well. This is one of the Japanese maples I like the most. It's called the coral bark, and I think it's obvious why it's called the coral bark. Once the foliage drops off and the cool temperatures really come, it really puts out this beautiful coral color. So if you want a Japanese maple with color year-round, really consider the coral bark. In terms of height and width, you're looking at 12 to 15 foot high, although it could be kept shorter, and probably about 6 to 8 wide, but it's very prunable. And you can see the trunk on this even down below. It's got this beautiful coral look to it. The leaves come out chartreuse green, so a beautiful green leaf, and then in the fall they turn fire orange. And as you can see, it is deciduous. This is one of our specimen weeping Japanese maples. I believe this one is a Crimson Queen, but there are other varieties like the Tamukiyama that you could get that are also very good and maybe even better than the Crimson Queen in our area. This one, of course, is deciduous, but it's a weeping. So its planted height currently is around 6 foot, but you could also keep them at more like 4 foot, and then of course they're going to continue to weep towards the ground. But it has beautiful red foliage color, and you can see there's some remnant of some of those leaves left, although they've been kind of beaten up before they've dropped off. But you're going to see a lot of this kind of, burgundy, deep burgundy color all over the plant. And it is a beautiful weeping Japanese maple. In terms of sun condition, Japanese maples in general are going to want part sun. So the coral bark can take almost full with irrigation, full sun, but the weeping Japanese maples would prefer 5 hours or fewer, particularly in the morning. So they don't want to get too much sun, particularly in the summer, as the leaves will begin to burn. If they don't get enough sun though, you don't have as good of a red color as you move into the summer. This is the dogwood, and obviously these are a little bit shorter ones, but the dogwood has this kind of rounded, elongated leaf, and there's the back. But what dogwoods are really known for are their spring, white, beautiful flowers. And they are deciduous. They want to be in part sun, not full sun. They're an understory tree, so you see them naturally growing at the wood's edge, kind of under some protection, but also kind of peeking out on their own. And heights 15 to 20 high and wide would be kind of probably where they'd max out generally in most of our landscapes. But beautiful spring white flowers, and the foliage is good too. They also get kind of a berry on them as well. These two trees here and here are both East Palaka hollies, reaching heights of 30 foot high plus and probably 15 foot wide. They're very similar to the Dahoon holly in terms of their overall size, but where it does differ is the leaf structure on the East Palaka is smaller, has a little more of a point to it, and a darker green, and does get covered with loaded with red berries, just like the Dahoon holly. So very, very similar, but slightly different in terms of its look, but a great tree to use as an accent. East Palaka holly. This is the single stem Natchez Crape Myrtle at a mature state. So you can see just a beautiful spread, beautiful trunk color, and just a really elegant tree in the single stem form versus the multi-stem.